Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Bitcoin has seen a fantastic move upwards over the last few days. Now the weekly candle closing at a phenomenal level and the monthly chart beginning to look incredibly bullish. The big question is, are we going to see an eventual break of 70,000 and continuation higher? In today's video, we're going to be answering that question as well as going over the short-term price action, the macro charts, Bitcoin dominance, and of course the total altcoin market cap. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos of Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion. Pure raw TA. That is the kind of content you are interested in. Join us on Telegram. It is the first link down below. We have 6,722 members here. You can join us again via the link down below. You'll get access to charts. You'll get access to updates, analysis, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you really need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. If you are interested in taking your trading to the next level to get access to our trading setups with exact entry prices, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more, you can contact me via the pinned comment in the free channel by clicking my name. You can also find our entire trading track record and a video showing you inside the VIP channel exactly what you'll get access to and what it's about. Again, the VIP channel has been around for now 39 months. This is our 40th month. We've done 1,062 live trades, only 202 losses, 862 wins. That's an 81.16% win rate. Again, every single month we track those results over here. You can see every month if you click the breakdown of the trades we took with those returns we have posted. So again, check it out if you're interested. You'll be hard pressed to find a channel that has the consistent win rate we have, with the transparency and, again, the specificity of the trades we are posting. Check it out and we'll jump into it, guys. So taking a look at the charts, Bitcoin, a fantastic move upwards, as we can see on that daily chart. As we discussed in yesterday's video, a strong move through that midline, now facilitating a very healthy bullish candle close, closing that candle above that $60,000 mark on the weekly, which is fantastic, but it's of course also above the $64,000 mark, which is the major resistance point we'll be discussing in a second. And with that, the monthly candle is looking absolutely phenomenal, with a massive lower side wick and a very small wick toward the upside, a relatively small body candle. This is a massive reversible candle over here, guys. Something to definitely pay attention to. We'll be discussing that in today's video later on. The short-term price action continuing upwards, still challenging that hourly resistance. We momentarily broke back above this level again, seeing a strong move upwards to retest his equal highs at just shy of 65k, but we have since seen in the last hour a equally strong rejection pushing us back under that region. We'll be discussing in today's video exactly what is happening and the extent of what is really developing here when we get up to our short-term analysis. Moving over to the market data, 24-hour volume is down 12%, 89 billion, 24-hour liquidations down 19%, 84 million. Of the 84 million, 56 million have come from long liquidations, with 10 million of those coming in the last correction, and 27 million over the last 24 hours have come from short positions. The DXY is continuing toward the downside, retesting what is a major weekly level of support. In fact, since 2023, the beginning, we have only dropped a single week underneath this support level 100, which was marked by that July bottom point. If we do break below this region, the DXY could potentially see a cataclysmic correction over the coming many months, which could be what triggers, or what facilitates, should I say, that money flowing into assets and the asset market seeing a bull run or a parabolic fade. So we're definitely watching this level of support, but until we break below that region, this is going to be acting as a local support as it is marked by that prior low point. So if we're going to see a bounce, if we're going to see any form of reversal, it will occur from here. However, if we fail to do so, we're heading back to that 99 level, that sell side liquidity, to retest that component. Looking at the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, sorry, the S&P 500 looking fantastic over here, guys. Again, weekly candle looking okay. It just opened up. It is currently red, so not a lot of, movement coming in at the start of the week over here. Only been 3 hours, not too much of a problem. The prior weekly candle, fantastic. The one before that, even stronger. We are watching, however, that weekly high point at 56.8. Not 56, at $5,684. We're watching that weekly high. We will need to see a break of this region to then see that continuation. So I wouldn't be looking over here and then jumping into longs. This, of course, is going to be closer to that local resistance. Of course, this was our support point, watching for a bounce from that region. We are now looking for a break over that resistance to then expect a continuation into 6,000. Provided that 5,300 level is able to sustain as support, which it currently is, we are expecting the price to continue to 6,000 eventually. If we do drop below 5,300, that will result in a high time frame downtrend starting for the S&P, and we will expect macro corrections. That is it, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into Bitcoin. A quick word from today's video sponsor before we do. If you're interested, for 15 to 45% off your trading fees, depending on your trading volume, you can go ahead and contact me, or should I say, sign up to the links down below using the links at Bitunix, BitGet, or BingX for those discounts. And again, to support the channel, we'll play a quick ad to find out more, and we'll jump back in the video. I'd like to introduce our partner, Bitunix. Bitunix is a global non-KYC, no country restriction exchange, making it a perfect exchange to trade on if you're from the USA, from Canada, the Netherlands, or just prefer to trade without KYC. This exchange is a futures and spot exchange with over 200 different trading pairs and some of the lowest fees in the game. If you sign up with my link down below, you'll get access to 15% off your trading fees, as well as an exclusive reward center where you can claim up to a multitude in USDT prizes. So go ahead and sign up with my link down below for 15% off, and I'll see you in there. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get stuck into it, starting on the weekly candle close and the weekly chart. So as we can see, Bitcoin has just closed its weekly candle, looking at about 12 minutes ago. It was literally just happened 10 minutes ago, 12 minutes ago, and that may be an hour ago since watching this video. But looking at the price of which it did close, it closed at around 64,182, 64,200, depending on the exchange you, of course, are viewing the price action on, at around about that 64,200 mark. The 64,200 mark is a very good mark. Of course, the weekly close was able to sustain above the midline of the trend line. Now, the weekly candle close in terms of overall significance isn't really that significant. The weekly candle is, of course, still within the confines of this macro descending channel formation. And the macro descending channel formation is going to be our high time frame descending consolidation pattern, which we know as to be a bullish consolidation. We know it to be a bullish consolidation because, again, descending channel formations are a representation that the price action is moving downwards over a period of time, but momentum is eventually exhausting and flipping bullish. And we have seen that play out now. It's taken 5 months for that to develop. We're now seeing that develop here on the RSI. We can see not only that the RSI downtrend, this being a representation of falling momentum over the course of the last 5 months of which Bitcoin has been in this consolidation, but we can also see nearing the end, the last 2 months of the consolidation, the low points are getting higher. The high points are getting lower. This is an indication that we are seeing some degree of compression with the momentum. It is indicating we are potentially seeing bearish exhaustion developing in regards to the momentum. This results in eventual reversals for the RSI, which in other terms would suggest that the momentum is slowly starting to flip back positive. This is a great indication paired with our descending channel formation. It is telling us there is a likelihood that when we do see that momentum flip positive, we do see the RSI break this downtrend, which is again the indication that we are currently experiencing negative momentum, we will likely see the price action follow suit to retest the range high of the descending channel. Remember, momentum is a leading indicator of the price action. So when we do see momentum break up, price action generally, not always, it generally does follow suit. So looking at the weekly candle close as a standalone, it doesn't really mean that much. It is a bullish close, of course. We've been able to not only engulf the wicks of the prior candles, but we've been able to close above that midline. But all in all, it didn't have as much significance as that daily close above that 19-day resistance we know as that midline level, which actually triggered the price action, shifting between that lower range and the upper range of this macro descending channel formation. So I wouldn't sit here and worry too much or overthink too much about the significance of that weekly close. It isn't too significant. However, in terms of where it closed out at, it is obviously a relatively bullish weekly close. What we are more or less focusing here on the weekly chart is going to be this upcoming weekly close, because we are watching very closely at the reaction of this RSI. We would really like to see that RSI break outwards, as we just told you guys. If we see that RSI break outwards, the probability we see directional continuations upwards is massive. And to show you another example, if we just go ahead and bring the charts up to show you another example of how we can actually use these RSI trend lines, if we take a look at this RSI trend line here, we can see we had that triple top RSI trend line, so 3 points of relevance on that RSI. Let's just go ahead and change this to white to make it more visible. We had, of course, this point here, which was a representation of the top. We, of course, had this point here, which was a representation of that rising channel high before the correction into capitulation. And, of course, we had this point here, which was essentially the last high point before we went into those all-time lows. This, in turn, actually formed the basis of what was a high time frame descending channel formation, which are 2 points of retest corresponding with our first 2 points on the RSI. What we eventually saw was, of course, a breakout of that RSI, which eventually resulted in a bullish reversal in the price action. We can see another instance for that occurring over here on the RSI. We had that respective downtrend on the RSI. When that downtrend on the RSI eventually broke upwards, what did we see? We saw the price action eventually break through that horizontal consolidation range we're developing and go toward the upside. So that is an indication of how we can actually see the RSI acting as a leading indicator for where the price action eventually goes on the last two macro examples. So that is it for the weekly chart. We are paying very close attention to that weekly RSI trend line. If we do break upwards, guys, we are looking for continuations into that high 80K region, potentially to retest that 96K region. I personally do not think Bitcoin will cross 96K without a massive challenge. I don't want to talk too much about these upper targets yet, still a long way away, but I've always said, even since all the way back at 18,000, 16,500, when I actually bought, we were looking at 96K as a major macro resistance point for Bitcoin. We'll get into that and why that's the case maybe in another video. We have done in the past, but we won't talk about that for a very long time again. Moving over to the daily chart is looking pretty good, guys. We have been able to close a few candles here above that short-term resistance at 64,000, which is a level, of course, of short-term significance. What we can see here, more importantly, is that we are still very much sitting above that midline. And as I said in yesterday's video, the significance of that midline goes as following. While we remain above that midline level, more so, while we see a daily close above the midline from the bottom side, we do eventually see directional moves towards the range high. So we saw over here, and we saw over here is another scenario. For the downside, we saw a breakdown, we saw a directional continuation lower, we saw a daily close below, we saw a directional continuation lower. So we can see both how on the upside and the downside, directional daily closes below and above the trend line result in eventual moves toward the respective range high or range low of the channel. So we do expect that pattern to complete. We do expect an eventual move upwards to retest that downtrend. The big question is, when will that occur? How long will that occur? Those questions are a little bit more ambiguous. We don't really have a time frame on that. We just know it is more likely for us to see a continuation upwards than for us to see a continuation back downwards. And we can use that information when determining what we should position ourselves as. Now, that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't retest that midline level. we could theoretically come back to retest the midline, and the probability of a range high retest is still greater than a probability of a drop below the midline. Just as we saw over here, we saw a breakdown, we saw a rally to retest the midline before a continuation. So as long as we remain above the midline level, we do have that bullish narrative for a continuation upwards, guys, and that is definitely something you should be paying attention to. Let's go ahead and jump into the short-term price action. This is where it gets a little more interesting. What we had over here is a few levels we can go ahead and eliminate now, but we'll go ahead and quickly discuss them. We had that horizontal consolidation, which lasted around about 12 or so days. We eventually saw the break upwards, and we saw the break as a consequence of that RSI breaking. We can see again how that RSI can be used. We broke above that respective RSI high, resulting in a continuation in the price action following suit. With that breakout, we saw the 200 SMA and the mid-level of the daily channel break through. As a consequence, we can go ahead now and eliminate this channel. That has served its purpose. We are out of that range. We don't have to pay attention to it. What we are paying attention to now is going to be our current uptrend. So the uptrend we have developed since the low point at 49,000. Now, if you do pay attention, if you do watch us on Twitter, if you do follow us on Telegram, you would know we were pretty much the only person to actually publicly say the bottom was in here. We posted on Twitter, we said the bottom is in here. I said, I believe the bottom is here. Very few people actually had the confidence to say that. We put our money where our mouth is. We took our longs. We put our reputation online, as we always do, and we told you guys the bottom was in. We've seen a significant move upwards from there, around 31%. Now, that is a massive move for Bitcoin. Think about 31% move for Bitcoin is huge. Now, since we have seen that move, we have established this overall uptrend. We've got one retest here, we've got our second retest here. So we don't have 3 points, we've got 2 points, so it is a speculative trend, but nevertheless, is the data point we are looking at. This is going to be the uptrend we'd assume Bitcoin to be in. This is the trajectory of the price action since the start of August. So if Bitcoin were to drop below this trend line, that would also, as a consequence, if we look at where that lines up with, that would also line up with perfectly that 200 SMA. Look at where that crosses over. Pretty much right over here, vertically, or just vertically below, or right below where Bitcoin is, lines that crossover point of the 200 SMA, which is the midline of the daily channel, as well as the horizontal support of the prior consolidation, and that monthly uptrend that we have established. So Bitcoin can theoretically see, worst case scenario, a correction back to retest this trend line, and then a continuation higher. That is a real possibility we'll be discussing in just a second. Now, the reason I want to talk about this trend line is because if we were to drop below this trend line, that would be the point of major concern. At that point, I would be concerned that this uptrend is potentially coming to an end, and we might see an extended correction on the short term. The reason being is because not only will we be dropping below this level of support, we'll be dropping below this uptrend, but we'll also be dropping below the 50 EMA and, of course, that midline now support level. Those are some critical points of confluence where if were to be lost, the probabilities would shift for a downward continuation. Where we'll be expecting the price to go to? Potentially even to 54K. Pay attention to that. Let's go ahead and now jump into the short-term price action and immediate hourly price action. This is going to be the hourly price action here. We can see some weakness developing. Again, we did see that break. We talked about it yesterday with this horizontal region. We told you guys if we broke above this region, we would expect to move upwards. We've seen that move upwards. That's about a 1% move upwards, touching 65K on the dot. We told you guys yesterday we were expecting a move to 65,000 to 65,250. That was our target range. That is where we're expecting the price action to move to. We hadn't seen 65,250 touched. We just touched that lower region. However, we still met that region. This is a resistance. This is our liquidity zone. If we zoom out to a high time frame, you will see a massive divot in the VRPV at that point has been almost filled. It's been touched. So we have reached a resistance. Therefore, now we are expecting this downtrend to continue. The question is Bitcoin going to find support and eventually retest and break through, or are we going to lose that 50 MA and then potentially continue lower? What we can see here is, of course, that below that 50 EMA, we have got a massive gap in the VRPV. Where does that gap take us? by no surprise, it takes us back to 61,500, which lines up with that uptrend. It would fill the gap and retest the midline at the same time. So the downside risk here for Bitcoin is that if we lose a 50 EMA, we would expect a correction at least to potentially retest this uptrending support level before a continuation back upwards. For the bullish scenario, I would be cautious on the short term here. I'd be watching closely to see how Bitcoin is able to sustain above that 64.4k level, mostly looking for a break above 65.250 to see that continuation then into 67, potentially even higher. We can see momentum is dropping over here as price action is very, very slightly rising, right? We have a very slight rise, which is a weak bearish divergence, nothing that I would be too concerned about unless we start dropping below that 50 EMA. Until then, more or less sideways chop into the new week. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, not much happening over here. Not really much to say. We are watching the reaction at these levels. Again, we do have a high time frame resistance that we are retesting. For altcoins to go parabolic, we need to drop below this level. Total market cap, altcoin market cap, again, very similar pattern to the broader total market cap. We are in a descending channel formation, not expecting altcoins to go parabolic, not expecting the market to really go parabolic until we are able to break through the upper respective resistances of these channels. If you do see the breakout, we are watching for a daily candle close on charts. Specifically, we are watching on these two charts. You know, I know we say daily on the Bitcoin chart. Actually, we're watching for a 3-day candle close on these charts, as particularly for altcoins, we like a little bit more confidence. We like a little bit more confidence in those higher risk plays for directional continuations, particularly with the last couple moves we have seen within this channel being these aggressive wicks toward the downside on the daily. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys tomorrow. See you then.